know why we can't record it.
Yeah, I think it's already recording.
Somebody got it going.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Oh,
whoever
Shreyas
got
is
it.
talking.
Yeah, I was playing with it and I saw the option, so I did it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not on my screen. Weird.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening to our colleagues in India. Good late evening, I guess. This morning we're going to have two, part one and part two of our webinars to go with from our summer internship program. So we have one U.S. and one India graduate students that work together with faculty. And so I don't want to take any more time since we have two of them, but so I'm just going to let them go into their presentations. And if you can we'll have about 25 minutes for each. So please put your questions in the chat, particularly if we run out of time for questions, and then we can get back to you. So thanks everybody for attending. And Malloy, I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Schultz. Hi, everyone. So today our presentation is on DC microgrid operation with centralized and distributed algorithms. So this work has been done in collaboration with IIT Kanpur, and we have been working with, we from WC have been working with Dr. Somaranjan Sahu and Sauradeep and Shreyashi on this work, and from WC side, Dr. Srivastava and Dr. Panala and me have been working on this topic. So this presentation is talks about centralized and distributed algorithms and how they can be used for control internal to the microgrid as well as external to the microgrid. So what I mean internal to the microgrid is, suppose the microgrid has a few DERs and a few loads. So how those DERs will coordinate among them to solve optimal power flow solutions or optimal dynamic solutions, I would say. And when I'm saying about external to the microgrid, it means that suppose the microgrid is enabled to exchange some active or reactive power, how it is going to help the utility for optimal operation, particularly in voltage control. Okay. So these are the two objectives that we have. So objective number one is that we'll have a performance comparison of centralized versus distributed control algorithms within the microgrid. And this is mainly dynamic performance analysis. And the other objective is analyzing the effects of internal microgrid schemes on utility grid or utility grid ancillary services. So once we have the microgrid to inject some active or reactive power to the utility, how the utility will command the microgrid for its centralized and distributed schemes. So this is a DC microgrid model that we have taken. So we have one PV and we have 4 battery energy sources and 1 load. And this configuration has been taken from a journal paper. And so basically we have 5 distributed energy resources and 1 load. So this is the centralized scheme that that we proposed. So basically what I mean by centralized scheme is that every microgrid will have an energy management system, which is called the microgrid energy management system. So the microgrid energy management system communicates with every smart DERs and smart loads, and it will collect some data from each of them. And then when it collects data centrally, it then computes the optimal set points for each of these smart DERs and loads, and then it will communicate that optimal set point back to them. So basically, centralized scheme has network-wide or microgrid-wide communication and centralized computing ability. and centralized decision making. So in this scheme, what the MEMS does is it collects the power data from load and PV, and it also gets an idea of how the SOC is for each of those batteries. And then when it gets, so all of this is internal to the MEMS system. So this algorithm runs within the computing agent or in the computing layer of the MEMS system. So when the PV power is more than the load, then obviously the batteries has to come up to cater that extra or additional load. So then, so what happens if the PV power is greater than the load, then SOCs, I mean the batteries have to serve the power. So the algorithm will choose the battery with the lowest SOC, and then it will. So basically, what happens is if the load power is more than the energy resources, which or the energy that is coming from the PV power from the PV, then batteries has to charge, like has to discharge, and then the opposite happens when PV power is less than PL. So this is just a basic idea that we have been working on, but and these are the results that we got, but these results doesn't go along with the algorithm that we showed earlier. So these results are for a very basic group control. So basically, in this case, all of those 5 DERs, PV and 4 batteries are in grid forming mode. And when they are in grid forming mode, they are actuated with a group control strategy. So as you can see that at so from time equal to 0, all of these 5 DERs are in grid forming mode, and at time equal to t, at t equal to 10 seconds, the load suddenly rises. So we have given a sudden load change, and to cater this load change, what happens is the batteries will try to discharge their power from their cell. And this plot is just to show that even if we have a load change in the DC grid voltage or the PV power, outputs do not change much, but these results will show that okay, at t equal to 10 seconds, since the load has changed or increased, then the power output from each of these batteries also rises up, just to cater the additional load. And this plot shows that at t equal to 10 seconds, each of these batteries, since each of these batteries are discharging their power, so the SOC level is reducing rapidly. And at t from t0 to t10, the SOC was still going down. This was only because the load power was more than PV. So this scenario show the dynamic characteristics of the microgrid model under a sudden load change, and when DERs, all of these DERs are in group control mode. So now we'll go to a distributed algorithm, which involves again the same dynamics of the microgrid model. And this work has been done by Sauradeep and Shreyasi. So I'll hand over to Sauradeep on this. And I can change the slides, so Sauradeep can tell me like I can change the slides.
Thank you, Niloy. So what we have seen in the centralized scheme is that voltage regulation and the current sharing errors are maintained. However, if we see the graphs of the SOCs, then we can see that the difference of the SOCs are not coming close to each other. This is because of the static protocol applied on the system. So the next question which comes in our mind, can we do the SOC balancing in the system along with our voltage regulation and our current sharing error? And we can do this by implementing distributed algorithm in the microgrid system. How that we'll see. Next slide. Yeah. So for this, we want to maintain our voltage regulation within 5%, and simultaneously we want to minimize our current sharing error. And the third aspect is that SOCs of batteries should converge to a common value. For this, we consider Drup to be constant and voltage shift in the Drup characteristics can be controlled. For this, we have implemented this modified Drup control that is given by this equation that the reference value of voltage equals to the nominal voltage minus the Drup coefficient into the current and our delta VI. Now, how to design the delta VI, that will depend on the SOCs as well as with the current sharing error. So in the voltage shift term, we'll incorporate the component representing the SOC balancing. If we directly feed that SOC terms in our system, then we can see unstable operation in the systems because of the fluctuating nature of its with the current sharing error. So what we can do is that modify the reference current in the current sharing protocol such that a weightage of the current sharing error has been given to each of the battery energy systems, and simultaneously both the current sharing error and the SOC balancing can happen simultaneously. Next slide, please. For that, we have implemented consensus-based protocol to achieve this in this distributed scheme. And I am briefly introduces what is the communication topology. So for that, we have defined a communication graph which consists of the node set and the edge set. So it's basically passes the information of the neighbors with each other. The informations are SOCs, current and voltage of the energy sources. So an edge of the graph, which we have denoted by IK, means that the node K receives the information from the node I. And from this, we can have our adjacency matrix as shown in the PPT, and also the degree matrix like the diagonal elements having the cumulative sum of the edge weights. So the basic property of the Laplacian matrix is that final value that will be governed by the initial condition of the states and its left and right eigenvector. For this, we have simply considered this linear consensus protocol, xi dot equal to aik kt minus xt, whose combined dynamics is represented with a significance of this Laplacian matrix. So you can see that the final convergence point is the average values of the initial conditions. Using this method, we can actually have the information of the average current, average voltage, and the average SOC. So our objective in this particular problem is to minimize the error between the nominal voltage and the estimated average voltage, and also to the current and the modified value of I average. Why that modified value? Because we are assigning a weighting factor to our average current based on the SOC values of the batteries. Next slide. Yeah. So the battery which has comparatively low SOC value, that should provide the less amount of current, and who has the higher SOC, he should provide the more current to so SOC balancing and the current sharing protocol may contradict with each other. This is because the current sharing part will try to minimize the error between the currents, whereas SOC balancing part will try to minimize the SOC differences between each other. So they may have a conflict in the nature. So what will happen is that for different initial SOCs, the algorithm attempts to maintain the SOCs to a common value. When this difference comes very close to each other, then the current sharing error term will dominate over the SOC balancing term. And so SOC difference will increase and again decrease, and this phenomena will continue. So to prevent this, what we can do is that assigning suitable weighting factor based on the relative different difference between the SOCs. And for that, we have used a proportional consensus protocol. Next slide. This is the diagram which explains the voltage shift that we have used for the distributed scheme. So what we are doing here is that to calculate the delta V, we are assigning one Drup coefficient term. So this is the contribution of the Drup coefficient. The second term is the current sharing error, but it's not the average current. It's actually the weighted average current. And how this is weighted average current, this alpha I factor into that I average will give the weighting, it will give the current sharing protocol. So in the alpha I, we will incorporate the SOC's values and the estimated average SOCs. And the third term, that is the simple PID control we have applied, and that will try to minimize the voltage of the nominal voltage and the output of the converter. So this part is of voltage regulation. One part is the current sharing and the SOC, and the third part is the group coefficient. Next slide, please. So right now, as we are going for the distributed scheme, we don't know what is the average value of the current voltage and the SOC values. So we need to estimate these average values. For this, what we have done is that we have assigned one auxiliary variable, that is SIT. The objective of the SIT is to convert this estimated state to the average value of SOC. So suppose there is one converter and it has information of two converters, but not the information of the rest of the converters. So based on the neighborhood information, it will try to estimate the average value of SOC, and that will be done by every converter. By cumulative way, they can finally convert to the actual average value of the SOC. For that, the update equation of the SOC we have written is that SIT should be equals to SOCIT plus gain factor and integral of the SSJT minus SIT. By manipulating or tuning the value of Ki, we can increase the convergence of this estimated states to the actual average value. If it is more, then the convergence will be fast, and if it is less, the convergence will definitely be slow. So this is the diagram which implements this update equation. So this is for the estimator scheme. Next slide. Okay, so if all the SOCs asymptote towards the average value, then all the SOCs will be same. The battery, which has comparatively low SOC, should provide a less amount of current. Now we are assigning the factor alpha I. So we need to minimize the difference between II and the weighted value of the estimate of the average current, that is the alpha into I average. So how to decide this weighting factor? So when our absolute value of the quantity 1 minus SOC by SI is greater than 0.01, which is possible initially, then we'll have a weighting factor as SOCI by SI. But if the differences comes close to each other, that is the convergence is happening for a certain time period, then the current sharing term will dominate. So to increase the value of the SOC balancing term, we can actually have our weighting factor more than the previous. So that's why we have given that if this difference, absolute difference, is between 0.01 to 0.001, then we can have their weighting factor of 10 instead of 1. And as the values are coming very close to each other, we can even increase the value to 100, this weighting factor, so that the SOC balancing term can act on the system in a suitable way, and also the current sharing is maintained. Next slide. Okay, so for the test cases, first we have done load shedding at time t equals to 10 seconds. First we'll see whether the estimated value, average value of the current voltage and SOC are converging to their actual average current voltage and SOC values or not. So from the figure, we can see that at t equal to 10 seconds, there is perturbation due to the load change, and finally this value coming close to each other. Also, we can see after 30 seconds, there is again perturbation, but this is not because of the load. This is because of the fact that we have a switched value of the alpha I, because in the alpha I we have different weighting factors like 1, 10 and 100. So whenever the SOC values are very close to each other, then the weighting factor increases. So there will be a perturbation in the system. But definitely the estimator scheme is there for all the time t greater than 0. So it will definitely converge again to the average value. What is happening here just after 30 seconds. So you can see from the first figure that the estimation of the average current is actually converging to the actual average current, and same is true for the voltage profiles also and for the SOCs also. You can see the difference we have taken in the SOCs in 10 to the power minus 4 value. This is because the initial difference of SOCs are not very different from each other. So the estimator protocol is converging. Once the estimator protocol is converging, we can go to the actual current voltage and SOC waveform. This estimator protocol can be fast if we increase the value of Ki in our update equation. So for the time being, we have taken that to be 10 in our system. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we are analyzing the dynamic characteristics of the microgrid when that load change happens at 10 seconds. You can see that the output current is around 300 after the load change. And also here we have 100% load change. So the value of the voltage changes at t equal to 10, and after that it maintains the 1200 value. Here in the third figure, we are showing the SOC values. You can see now the SOC is trying to converge to each other to the average common value. So to show it more clearly, we have plotted the norm of SOC errors. Why? Because for the SOCs decays very slowly, so it will take a lot of time. So if we plot the norm of SOC1 minus SOC2 plus norm of SOC2 minus SOC3 and so on, so the cumulative sum will represent a cost function which defines that the overall relative difference, absolute relative difference, will decrease or not. So if we plot this cost function, then we can see that as time t progresses, the SOC norm errors, actually norm of the SOC errors decreases with time. So for further time, it will come very close to 0. Okay, next slide, Nilo. Now we are doing partial load sharing. For that, we have changed the output power of the PV panel at t equal to 10 seconds. You can again see that the estimated states converge to the actual value within 10 seconds, let's say, because from 10 to 20 seconds it converges. And same is for the voltage profile and also for the SOC profile. Again, by tuning the Ki parameter, we can improve the time of convergence. For this case also, we have taken the same coupling strength in the systems. So here first we have seen that the estimate converges to the actual average value. Next slide, please. This is the dynamic characteristics of the microgrid when there is a change in the PP output. You can see that the output current has it's near to 200, so the current sharing error is maintained. Also, the voltage regulation is also good in the systems. And again, we have plotted the SOC values which comes close to each other. Here, the norm of SOC errors, that objective function that we defined earlier, have shown that in case of change in the output PP power also, it's reducing. Next slide. Okay. Then the volt per control system, which is external to microgrid. Till now, we are considering the internal dynamics of the microgrid. Now we are going to the external to the microgrid. That part will be handled by Niloy.
Yeah, so right now, till now, we were like only talking about voltage dynamics, current dynamics, internal to the microgrid. So the way we are seeing is that if we have centralized or distributed microgrid schemes, like MEMS schemes, and then we have an utility which has an objective to control voltage throughout the feeder, then how the utility will command that microgrid to send any active or reactive power to hold voltages within a certain band. And so here we are talking about centralized voltage schemes, voltage control schemes external to the microgrid. That means for the utility ADMS. So it involves an optimization problem, and we are considering multi-phase systems, multi-phase unbalanced systems. So basically, in any optimization problem involving voltage control, we have an objective, we have powerful equations which are steady state in nature, and we have constraints. So the powerful equations that we have for multi-phase distribution systems are shown in this box, and we are considering a linearized branch flow model. The branch flow model is generally very non-convex, is non-convex in nature, and it's very hard to solve using any polynomial time algorithm. So what we do is that we introduce relaxations or approximations to make it convex and then solve it. So here we have used a linearization technique. So it involves voltage drop in each lines. It involves nodal conservation of active power and reactive power. So all this results up into a set of matrices, which is represented by Gx equal to C, where X is a set of all state variables or set of all optimization variables, which are active power flow Pij, reactive power flow Qij, and then voltage in each phase of the network Vi. Then PDR and QDR are the active and reactive power injections coming from each DRs. So we have used this. So this work has been already published in a transaction where we have a microgrid model, and then that microgrid helps in voltage control, centralized voltage control in the utility. So once we have the power system equations, then what are the constraints that we have? The constraints that we have is the voltage constraints and reactive power constraints. So we have not involved active power constraints from the microgrid, because we are saying that the microgrid will only help in voltage control by exchanging some reactive power. So the voltage in each phases of the network are upper bounded by an upper limit, which is 1.05 pu, and the lower limit is 0.95 pu, and the microgrid reactive power exchange also is bounded by some upper and lower limits. And then ultimately we have power flow equations. So we have already done this work and it has been published. So once we are done with the controls internal to the microgrid, we are thinking of using or comparing those schemes from an utility perspective. Similarly, we have also done some work on distributed volt-hour control on the utility
So, Niloy,
side.
we need you to wrap up in about 2 minutes.
Okay, yeah. So what I mean by distributed voltage control is in a distribution system, suppose there are like few microgrids, and each of these microgrids will only communicate among each other and then try to inject some reactive power to control voltage. So it involves linearized power flow equations. And then, so this is the architecture. So we have this distribution system, and then we have some DERs, and these DERs will only talk with their neighbor DERs and send some information. So basically it will measure the local voltages, and then it will communicate only with the neighboring DERs, and then it will inject some reactive power in the next time instant. So this work has already been done in our paper before. So ultimately we have this optimization problem, and then these are the steps that we take while solving the optimization problem, the distributed optimization problem. So basically step number 1 involves that we measure local voltage, then we calculate reactive power injection, optimal reactive power injection. Then obviously step number 3 is when we inject reactive power reactive power, we have to keep it bounded between the upper and lower limits. And then step number 4 involves communication with its nearest neighbors. So that's it, I think, from us. So our motive is to complete the comparison of dynamics internal to the microgrid. And once that is done, we can test it on the centralized and distributed schemes from an utility perspective. Thank you, everyone. So if you have questions, you can ask us.
Okay, there are a couple of questions in the chat. So we're going to start with the second talk. And Satabdi, are you going to share your screen? There you go. All right. We have Satabdi from IIT Roorkee and Partha from WSU and WVU. Go ahead and start.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Satabdi.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yes, you are now.
Yes, you are loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning and good evening, everyone. So this is our work which we have done during our internship period. It is on distributed resilient control of interconnected DC-AC cyber physical microgrid clusters. We have not attempted for interconnected systems though. We have gone for interconnected DC rather. So a research team. The research team constitutes of Dr. Sanjeev Pannala from Washington WSU, Partha Sarthi Sarkar and Dr. Anurag Srivastava from West Virginia University, and Dr. M.P. Pari and I from IIT Roorkee. So this is the outline of the presentation. The task that were assigned, that we mutually decided upon, was AC-DC microgrid cluster formation, that is the physical modeling from the IITR part, and the communication layer modeling from that would be handled by WSU, and the collaboration between WSU and IITR for resilient algorithms. The objectives that we had pre-planned were the modeling of the distributed consensus-based control for the MG clusters, then the modeling of the communication resources, interlinking them, studying about the how attacks affect the microgrids, and then have an analysis of its operation, formulate some resilient algorithms, and draft the observation. So let's proceed. Actually, Sauradeep had made my task easier by explaining a lot about graph theory and consensus-based control. So I'll just skim over the control parts. The consensus problem is actually, I'll mention here, consensus on the perspective of single integrated systems. So it's basically, it builds up on two theorems in one equation. That is, so this is the equation, consensus equation, and the two theorems are that if there is a spanning tree, then the consensus value will be achieved. And if there is a spanning tree again, and there is a root node I, and all the agents will converge to this external control signal Ui. To basically sum up what is cyber physical systems, from an electrical perspective and from my understanding, it will constitute information and knowledge from a diverse set, like from a diverse domains, for example, electromagnetics, informations in circuit and control theory and graph theory. The cooperative control means interlinking control systems in a dynamic multi-agent system, and they exchange data with each other or with their neighbors based upon the communication network that we build. And we also try to optimize the communication links resources, and that's why the communication graph would be sparse. And the cooperative control problem basically deals with it has three main problems: the synchronization, tracking, and containment. Synchronization generally occurs in systems or graphs which do not have a leader. So what did they try to achieve is an average of the initial values. And tracking problem would be can be projected to systems where they have a leader or there is at least one pinning node, and all the other followers would try to achieve the state of the leader. And containment problem can occur in directed and both undirected graphs in the presence of multiple leaders. So this picture is just to show that as simple as it seems, cyber physical systems, and we can have a very clear boundary between them, but it is not so in realization. Rather, we do think that the cyber is in cloud and the physical system is what we see, but then there is a dynamic coupling between those two. Okay, so let us move ahead to the test system operation that we took for our investigation. We took a 5 microgrid cluster system. Each of or suppose they are supposedly to be taken as communities. So each community has 4 DERs, and this shows the current flow path between the DERs and the common load and the local loads that they share. And this system has also been picked up from one paper that we have published recently. So that would ease us for for our further tests. So before I move on, let's just have a small discussion about what the primary control helps us. It's just it helps us to follow the local objectives, local power, voltage, and current. Secondary control rather has a corrective action due to DRU control in the primary layer. Tertiary controller generally associates with optimization, management, or overall power sharing. That is inter-microgrid power sharing. So a very quick idea of what is DRU. It can be visualized as a virtual impedance, which helps in accurate power sharing between multiple parallel connected converters. But in the process of attaining a very good power sharing or very good accurate current sharing with respect to the converter ratings, what we lose is the voltage regulation. So both the objectives aren't achieved together. So, but they can be made to achieve together by having a secondary control imposed on whether you go for DC DRU, AC DRU, or interlinking DC AC DRU. Okay, and yes, important point to note is that DRU can be linear, non-linear, and also adaptive in nature. Now we move towards the control layer modeling. The reason for showing this is that, this is the primary layer control, and this is the secondary level control. The secondary level control consists of a voltage observer and a current observer for our test system. So basically, Sauradeep was trying to attain consensus in the state of charge of the batteries. But for our objectives, to fulfill our objectives, we needed the current in per unit to achieve consensus, and also maintain the average voltages throughout the grid, throughout the DC microgrid to be same. Okay, but here there are two important things to be noted. When we go for a DRU control, we need to design a voltage controller and an inner current controller. So that leads to a design of 2 cascaded controllers. But when we go for a reverse DRU control modeling, we rather minimize and optimize the control structure to just one PI controller. That's a current controller. But there's also a warning mark, or that's an asterisk. In asterisk, I have shown that such a system of reverse DRU cannot be applied to boost converters, because when we go for a zero pole mapping of the system for a boost converter, there is a zero in the right half plane, which can cause instability problems. So we have taken this control diagram from a paper. This is to explain the levels of control, the global tertiary control laws, the local tertiary, and the secondary control laws. The attack scenarios will be more in detail explained by Partha, but yet let us have just a quick review. in with perspective to power electronic system. So they are basically taxonomy is that is it is mainly divided into deception and denial of services. Deception, we include false data injection. It can be into nodes and links. So in nodes, we consider the FDI is into the sensors, and links refers to communication links. Then DOS can be again divided into MITM, machine in the middle, or loss of communication links. But we are mainly concerned in machine in the middle, and it can be categorized into unidirectional and bidirectional. So the main differentiating point between them two are that false data generally overrides an original set of data, whereas MITM replaces completely the original data. Okay. So this is the resilient technique that we tried to implement in one of our papers. The reason for showing it or reiterating the paper is that we also tried to verify it in a different operating system, because mostly Partho was going to use Mininet for the communication layer modeling. So for that, we needed an OS which is not Windows. So we needed to reaffirm whether the system is working with Linux or Ubuntu or not. So let us have a quick idea of about the resilient operation. So the detection technique, basically, I have taken up. I'm investigating into Laplacian-based disagreement methods or push-arm resilience method. So this one based on Laplacian-based disagreement, in which we find out the difference between our neighbors and try to conclude whether an attack has occurred or not. And when it crosses the threshold, we adaptively vary the weights in the secondary layer or in the upper layers, and like detect the scenario and mitigate the action. For example, here I have taken. There is an attack template of 2 voltage was employed in the global tertiary control layer, and the detection strategy operates to detect the anomaly. So what happens is here, whichever misbehaving component is there, it has been detected and separated, and the remaining components that are healthy, they achieve consensus until the normal operation is restored. So this is the way we have tried to prove that this resilient algorithm helps us work. One of the important points to note that in the diagram, I might have shown that there could be 2 pin nodes at weld in order to maintain a safety bottleneck, or to have more reliability in the system. But to have two leaders in a system, or more than one leader, does not mean it will lead to a containment problem, because for the upper layer, it will be seen as just only one node because the values are averaged. So the containment consensus problem is eliminated from here. So these are the parameters that are used. Here, Partha can explain better. I'll hand over to Partha. Hello.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Partha,
So this is Partha from Washington, previously from WSO, now from WVU. So here, as Shatabdi already explained, that we will have several communities of DC microgrid, and those will be communicated to each other to a global tertiary control. So as you can see, the intercommunication link and intercommunication link are with different colors. Right now, we are trying to implement the communication link in the intercommunication link, that is the blue one you can see here. So the leader node will communicate with the global tertiary control from each microgrid cluster via a communication network. And next slide. Shatabdi, next slide, please.
Yeah, please, just a second.
You have to just double click on that.
Okay, so as you can see that for implementing that overall architecture, we now need to move to a cyber physical architecture where MATLAB will be used to simulate the power system and its controllers, all the controllers. And then we are using Mininet to simulate the communication network, and finally a Python interface to interface this MATLAB and Mininet co-simulation so that they can coordinate. And you can see the proposed architecture for this framework here. As Mininet is a Linux-based network emulator, So we have to use Linux OS here, and though there is the option for running Mininet in a Linux environment as a virtual machine in Windows, but the problem is then running the MATLAB in the Windows side and communicate the data which needs to be transferred between different microgrids cluster and data to the Linux OS is so far we haven't found any solution for that. That's why Shatabdi needs to transfer all of our work to a Linux-based MATLAB system. And here a brief introduction about Mininet. Mininet is actually a network emulator that can create a virtual network with host, switch, controller, links, basically all the things that presents in a cyber communication network. And the hosts are emulated in a bash process. It's a CMD, command prompt text basis operation, and the host in the Mininet network actually represents each of the microgrid clusters in the physical layer. So what happens whenever the physical layer generates some data, that is the power layer, through MATLAB simulation, that data needs to be initially it was transferred within the MATLAB so that other clusters and global controller can know what is the data and they can do the control execution. But here, to replicate the same process with cyber physical architecture, the Mininet will read that data from the physical layer and it will transfer the data from one block of microcontroller, one block of microgrid cluster to the global controller, so that global controller can do the control operation and then send back the control set points to the each microgrid cluster leader node. And for that, we have developed the Mininet network emulation, and that network emulation can actually is very customizable. So we can feed in any network topology based on the microgrid connectivity. And then here we can also perform loss of communication nodes and link. And finally, we can implement here denial of service attack and man in the middle attack, or mission in the middle attack, where as Shatabdi already mentioned, this can be done. Next slide. So overall process of this co-simulation will be first, as I already explained, that first the primary layer operates with a preset reference that will happen in the MATLAB Simulink model, and then the second layer will be activated and the dynamic average voltage will be calculated and predictor current will be all be measured. And then it comes to the peer-to-peer information exchange, and when the leader currents needs to be communicated to the global layer, Mininet network will come there, and then Mininet network, each host that represents the leader nodes, and will create a client mechanism using socket communication, and that client mechanism will read the data from the leader node, what is its current, and then it will transfer that current data through the Mininet network via to the global layer, where there will be a server will be created at the global layer using socket communication. So during this communication, we can perform man in the middle attack, denial of service attack, or we can just simply omit one link or node host, so that represents that in actual scenario, the communication line is out of service, or the physical cyber layer that is representing a physical layer that is out of service. And once that is done, then as usual, the calculation will take place to regenerate the voltage reference for the DC microgrids, and then that set point will be communicated via Mininet to the leader node again for next step of operation, and this will repeats itself for whole time of simulation. Shatabdi.
Thank you, Partha. So next, I would like to present the real-time implementation that we have done for the physical structure. This was in the process of finding an answer to the interlink between, to the missing link rather, between the physical system and Mininet. So we had tried lot many ways. So so within that, this had cropped up. That this popped up that we tried to have a real-time implementation in Marascat, and we would like to discuss with the observations that we have found out. So what we did is we took 2 microgrids in one subsystem and another microgrid in another subsystem. So that basically means we have rack-to-rack communication. So this would also introduce, since we are communicating from one rack to another, it would also introduce an inherent delay. So we are going to see the response of this inherent delay. These are the parameters that we have taken. The asterisk mark that I have explained before is that we have taken up cascaded controllers because we are implementing boost converters here. So here reverse troop control will not work. Yeah. So these are the results that we have obtained for DC load current sharing under normal operation. So in respect of in all the 3 microgrids, the currents are shared according to their proportion, to the rating. The DC terminal voltages can also be seen here. When we next move towards the DC reference voltages from the global tertiary layer, because the loading is different, so the reference points will also be said to be different. And the DC leader, however, the DC leader currents have to be same because they are on a per unit basis. Then we investigate one sub-test case in which we try to differentiate that what happens during a load change and what happens during a false data injection. This we have like this false data has been injected on top of the data that is incoming to the leader current, incoming to the global tertiary on the leader current. So this is the effect. So we can see that the load change has a different effect, dynamic characteristic, and the false data injection has different characteristic. So accordingly, yes, one important thing that I wanted to showcase here that we are also since microgrid 3 is on a different rack, so it is experiencing a lot many oscillations. Rather, this is microgrid 3. Yeah. Okay, let me take the pointer. This is microgrid 3. I have taken. Okay, so it is experiencing a lot more oscillating value because of the inherent delay present in RTD between the communicating between the 2 racks. So this is one observation that we would like to showcase. Okay. And the DC leader currents, we can see how they are disturbed, but during a load change it is different, whereas during a false data injection it is different. Similarly for the voltages as well from the global tertiary layer. Then we applied the Laplacian-based disagreement method on the global tertiary layer to identify whether the misbehaving component is getting separated, segregated or not. So it successfully identifies and segregates the misbehaving component, and the rest of the healthy components achieve consensus and waits until normal operation. These are the results that we have obtained under mitigation of FDIA. In the global tertiary, we haven't. This is where we are restricted to till now. Our results are restricted to now. We haven't gone ahead. So to sum up, a discussion would include that the resilient operation would be guaranteed by proper identification of the intrusions. Then the control algorithms were re-verified using a real-time environment. The modeling of the communication layers in MATLAB and RTDS represents a very vague idea, though, and may not emulate the actual scenario, and could only be possible by interconnecting Mininet with other platforms, which is still under investigation because the missing link between to communicate between Mininet and MATLAB, we are still working on that. And more appropriately, packet losses, delays, and other attack scenarios could be emulated. I'd like to conclude with this, that an initial understanding of the physical structure was well important for our work, and to understand that which platforms gives us the ease to integrate with Mininet. We also, on the roadway, we also discovered certain issues as I discussed with you. And the subcases that we will include in our future investigation would be, first of all, would be that the DC microgrid operates in a normal manner when we try to run the communication in a different software and the physical layer on a different software. And the effect of the intrusions can be studied and compared with the results that we are obtaining in MATLAB separately when you're not using Mininet and RTDS also. So that could also give us a very good outlook on the problem statement. And yeah, resilient algorithms I'm using the already established, that which I mentioned in the beginning, that Laplacian with disagreement and Push-Ham resilience. Yeah, this is all I think we had to present. Thank you. We can you can let us know your questions. These are the references. Thank you.
Yeah, so there are a couple questions. One is, and Ahmed, I'm not sure if they're mixed on which talk. So can you describe the false data, how false data is injected?
Oh, yeah, we have taken up a few templates, like constant template. We have taken up a RAM template. It can be anything actually, but for our testing purposes, and because we do not need the scenario of unbounded attacks. Unbounded attacks will anyway be detected by the if not by the physical layer resilient algorithms, but by the like when we secure the cloud, when we secure the communication system. So it will anyways be detected. So our focus is on the bounded attacks. So in that we have taken two templates: constant template, RAMP, and sawtooth. If this answers your question.
What type of communication you use there? Modbus or different?
No, that is what I tried to explain, that in MATLAB and RTDS, the communication protocol, I'm not specifying which kind of communication protocol I'm going to use. It is very generalized, and rather it is used by having from and go to blocks in MATLAB. And in RTDS, it is by calling the two variables in one subsystem to another subsystem. So this is a very generalized representation. It would be more accurate, or it would rather emulate the real-time scenario only when we have another platform to model the cyber layer separately. This is the rather constraint while modeling a CPS in RTDS or MATLAB.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we probably have time for one more question. I don't know if you, Ahmed, if you got your answers to your question for the first talk?
No, Sanjeev, not Sanjeev, Nilay. Yeah, I have seen you mentioned a little bit confusing. One is I have seen many times here the voltage, DC microgrid and voltage. So Nilay mentioned sometimes that we are talking about those things, volt-var optimization, so that the voltage will be supported from reactive power or something like that. But the first presentation you guys mainly mentioned battery. So okay, then in the first presentation from your side, this is DC microgrid or AC microgrid, and you always mentioned battery, right? Battery will. So does battery also support the voltage? And if yes, then how?
Yeah, I think Dr. Sanjeev can explain this more. So.
Yes. So right now, so we are using the DC microgrid. So and the DC has like batteries. Yes, batteries can support the DC bus, but there will be an interlinking converter. That's kind of an inverter, which is connecting these DC grid to the actual utility point of a PCC. Then where it can export the power. So the batteries are indirectly supporting to the ancillary services through the inverter, but that is directly to the DC bus. So if it is active power support, of course, like battery is directly involved. But if it is a reactive power support, it depends on the DC grid capacitor or the DC side capacitor of the interlinking converter. So that will actually play a major role how much reactive power as well as can be exported along with the converter rating itself. So and what was the other question is? Sorry.
Ahmed, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And if, yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, I thanks for our students, and we really appreciate their presentations. And it's great to see that the internships, we had these 2 seminars, and we'll work on the next seminars and next steps. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you joining, and have a great rest of your day, or good night to our Indian colleagues. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning and good night. Noel, how are you? Nice